Good evening, everybody. We're making a short video, mainly because we've got a ton of requests where we ate, or at least some insight. I want to explain why we're kind of the path we've taken. Most importantly, I want people to understand that in situations like this, to where they didn't find someone or a location 100% responsible, if we speak about it out of terms, or we speak about it incorrectly or subjectively, we can get sued. And that's why I've been so well versed and not identifying where we ate. I wanted to wait until we got the grammar report back. That way I can tell you exactly what's there. And then I can say, like, this is how the investigation went. This is what was found. This is what was said. This is how it went. And this is what I think, especially since I'm her father. If you guys don't know by now, Olivia, my daughter, is 2 years old. She ate at a location, a restaurant here in town. She got a bacteria called E. coli. Because of the E. coli, her kidneys failed. It's a disease called the hemolytic uremic syndrome. It's not transferred person to person, so you don't have to worry. Her kidneys completely failed. She was hospitalized. And it's pretty rare. It's so rare that when we took her to the initial pediatrician, he told us to let it pass. That's also because that's not her normal pediatrician. Maybe he just didn't recognize her or whatever. It happens, right? She didn't really have any signs of it other than what we had said. So it took a few days to figure it out. Long story short, right? She was hospitalized, stayed at Primary Children's. It was out of network, our costs, so they're kind of high. And that's another reason why I was very cautious, because it's like I don't have money to fight a lawsuit and have to pay my hospital bills. I don't think anybody wants to get sued anyways, but and they're basically talking about defamation, right? If I go out there and say, if I accuse somebody without evidence, then there isn't any justification in what I'm saying, and I'm just accusing somebody without documentation of what or why I'm saying it, right? So that being said, Olivia's hospitalized. This is what I want to explain. I want to explain this because I felt like this is important, and I wanted people to know this because I found it concerning. I also talked about it with the news a little bit. So when Olivia's in the hospital, I called the Tool Health Department. I told them, I'm like, hey, like, we got E. coli from out here. They kind of brushed it off, and I don't know if they get a lot of complaints about it. Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know any data on the complaints they receive, but they basically told me it was an anomaly and to not be concerned. That's what they said. They said, I wouldn't be concerned. That's probably an anomaly, that it just happened, you know. And it was unfortunate that happened to Olivia. And so the process was interesting, because I told the Tool Health Department, I'm not knocking them. I will say that I wasn't very pleased with the situation, and I'll explain why. So we tell them, end of July, early August, that Olivia has E. coli. And we know that, right? They can test, they can prove her kidneys completely failed. She got blood transfusions, dialysis, and kidney to kidney. Those are facts, right? I told the health department, and I kept calling because I wasn't really satisfied with that. And this is early August again, and I think I want to say the state of Utah actually called me, and they interviewed me, asked me some questions, asked me where we ate, locations we could have been, where we have been, essentially. And we named 3 things that were of concern, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so that's early August. At that time, they basically said the same thing, that they weren't aware of any other incidents or any other possible situations to where there would be E. coli and found present, right? And so another thing that when I spoke about the Tool Health Department, they said that, well, we inspect what they say. They said that we have regular inspections of the restaurant, so it's really you know, it could have been something else. It basically is what they're suggesting. And I totally disagree, right? I couldn't, there's just, you just don't get E. coli. It's not natural to have the specific strain of E. coli that causes this kidney failure, right? There's a lot of information and I can tell you more, but that's not necessarily the concern of this. But the concern is with E. coli in this strain is you get it from improperly cleaned produce or improperly prepared produce. So if you have lettuce, it's really common. People get E. coli off lettuce all the time. That's what it seems in the news, right? You need to wash it. And it's super important to wash it. My wife does that anyway, so I know we didn't get it from there. Your meat, you cook your meat properly. I know we didn't get it from the meat because I used to cut meat, like cut it up, right, for a living before my LAS mission. But, so I'm very familiar. I cut meat for a while, so I knew those weren't the cases. A petting zoo is another area that a lot of places or a lot of people get E. coli from. Basically, you just want to wash your hands before and after very thoroughly. Otherwise, you can get E. coli, right? Because you're dealing with animals that could potentially have feces on them and have that strain. We didn't go to a petting zoo in that time frame or even really close to it. So that was out of the question. So that leaves the last place, the restaurant, right, that we ate at. And we ate at one restaurant in that time frame for about 2 weeks. So we know where we got it, but we're gonna keep going for a second. So we tell them the end of August, and I know it's kind of hard, but you gotta understand that we told them the end of August, and we didn't get a follow-up till October. And so this is where it gets interesting. So we get a call in October from the state of Utah. I get called by, what do you say, not an apprentice. I got called by, I should have wrote it down. I couldn't remember his name. I got called by a volunteer or something like that. And he was calling to notify me that Olivia, our daughter, was involved in a E. coli outbreak. That it was found locally and nationally. And that kind of fits with what we're thinking anyways. And that's all they told me, that it was a significant local and nationwide outbreak. And that's all they told me at that point. Asked all the questions. They said they're just going to continue investigating it. I followed up with that, nothing. And so basically the conclusion was that they had their suspicions but could not prove 100% where or what happened. And that being said, they wouldn't suggest that X location was the one responsible. And the reason for that is obviously a lawsuit, right? Defamation. So if I were to say that my mom had a restaurant, say I got E. coli and sick from it, and I had no proof of that, she can sue me because I wouldn't have any evidence. That's defamation. That's not honest. I'm being honest. And so with our side of it, I've been very careful and cautious because I actually reported this to the news, right? And they did not report it, even though we told them where we ate. And I said, that's, between you and health department. I'm not going to tell you that, hey, you need to do it. And they felt that with what the health department said, that they wouldn't report it publicly where we ate because they wanted to protect themselves and the integrity of the business. I will tell you about the business themselves. I reached out to them and I said, would you be willing to share our fundraiser? And they're like, why? And I said, well, we actually ate there and we're pretty sure we got it from there. The manager or a manager, I don't know how in terms, I actually got a hold of them. For one, they didn't call me for like a week, so I was like, that was weird. And I called him and he's like, you're a liar, all this blah, blah, blah. Nobody talked to us. And the Grammar report says otherwise, right? And the state of Utah says otherwise as well. And so I was kind of suspicious on why he was acting like that. They're blatant, with all honesty, they're pretty ignorant. I called corporate and I complained and they're like, yeah, we can't do anything about it. We're sorry about it, treated that way. I'm like, well, oh well, I'm never going to eat there again, right? And this is and I want this to be very, very, very clear that I don't want people to go out and, I'm going to use the word crucify them. Maybe that's not the correct term. I don't want people to do anything to this location. And that's why we haven't done it. Even though my daughter suffered in the hospital, almost died, and may have or need a kidney transplant, I don't want to ruin somebody's business without knowing 100%. And even if the health department said like they're 90% sure, that's not enough, right? They needed to prove. And this is where I kind of wasn't very happy because I felt like and I honestly, and I have every right to feel like this. I felt like the health department didn't believe that we got it from where I said. So they didn't investigate it or take it as serious. And I think when you're dealing with time and you're dealing with like bacteria, if we got it from there, which I think we did, because everything signs it, like there's just no other way we would have got it, that if we got it from there, there's just no other way, right? Like it's frustrating to talk about, because I wish they would have, when I told them initially that that's where we got it, I wish they would have investigated. Because at that time, honestly, they could have cleaned everything, changed their chicken. And I'm not saying that they did that, because I don't know. I don't know. And I want to be clear about that. But it sucks because we get stuck with the medical bills. And with the Grammy report, this is like, you know, if you look it up, the definition, you can look at it, something like government, government records, right? Basically is what it comes down to. And when they do inspections like this, it's public, but with our case, we had to be very specific, because when you get a Grammy report, you can just request it and they can leave out or add information based on your request, and you have to be super specific. And I was asking super specific questions on the phone with them, and they wouldn't respond to a couple of them. And so here's the thing that's frustrating to me, is they didn't find out where it came from. And this is interesting, because they told me they followed the DNA of the bacteria and couldn't pinpoint with exactness the cause. And so say that we ate somewhere and that they got it from a vendor, blah, blah. They couldn't derive where it came from. They just know that there was multiple local cases and nationwide. And so a lot of people think that we're going out there and protecting this place, and we're not, right? One, we don't want to get sued. Two, it's been 6 months and they've been inspected since, and so it's not there. So there's really nothing, like me telling people it's not really going to change anything. I'm going to tell you, and I'm not going to tell you in the fact that, well, it was them and that's what their problem. I'm going to tell you guys how the inspection went with regards to the report. I'm going to say that way it protects me, it protects everybody, and that keeps us safe in that manner. Because me telling you doesn't change anything. The reality is, and this is something I want people to do, is if they get sick when they eat somewhere, you need to report it. Because that's how the health department builds these cases. And like I said before, that's why I was pretty frustrated with the health department. I felt like they had a delayed response. They may tell me otherwise. I don't really care. I can tell you that if it was taken seriously, I think that when I finally got interviewed about Olivia's illness, she had been hospitalized August 2nd. And then when I was actually interviewed was August 10th or 11th. I can't remember. I can pull my phone and prove what day it was. But that's a long time, knowing that somebody had E. coli and was hospitalized and on life support. That's very concerning to me. And I wasn't really happy with it. I'm not blaming them, but I wasn't happy with it. And that's part of the delay and all this information, because I felt cheated. Because in most cases, when something like this happens, we're able to find who's responsible for Olivia's sake, and they pay the bills, the mounting bills we have. And then we're not responsible. And that's part of the issue with these type of situations. In these situations, in most cases, I think it was like 98% of the time, and maybe with a 2%, I don't know. 98% of the time, who is found guilty is responsible. Who is found responsible pays for this with the insurance they have, like their business insurance, right? Because that's why they have it, and it keeps everybody safe. And they pay for it because it was their wrongdoing. It was a franchise, right? But so they have money. It wasn't a local place. And it's just super frustrating, if you can't tell. I get irritated talking about it. That's another reason why I've been. And I understand everybody's concern. But the reality is, by law, when people have this E. coli strain, this is what the health department told me, it has to be reported. And so I don't understand what the health department did to report it. I don't understand because I didn't see it. What I mean by that is I wasn't aware of any report that they had published saying that there was somebody with E. coli in this town and that there's a reason why and we should be careful. And that being said, I think this video is probably ran too long. So I'm going to make another video and I'm going to tell you where. I'm actually going to talk about the investigation. But this is why we're here and why I haven't told you, because there's real grounds if I go out there and say like, hey, they did it and I don't have the information to back up what I'm saying. And normally I probably wouldn't care if I didn't have to pay for medical bills. And what I mean by medical bills is like every time I go to the doctor, it's like $1,500 our cost. And that's because it's out of network, right? And so I specifically want to make sure I'm not getting sued on top of this. And maybe they're still going to try to sue me releasing this information. But it's just very concerning that they weren't held accountable, you know. But then again, who is to say that they should be accountable? But I tell you where we got it. If you eat somewhere, you eat anywhere else, we didn't eat anything else that could have had it, we got it from there. So that's this video one, but I want people to watch this video and understand why we didn't just come out and say it was them. Because I don't want people, because the warning in the news isn't this advise you of where we ate, it's advised that this is real. That HUS, hemolytic uremic syndrome, in the 1980s was a 60% mortality, 55%, right? Back then, you're more likely to die than live when you got it. And even today, I think it's 5% mortality and about 5 cases in Utah a year arise. About, you know, these are all statistics they produced. And then if you get it and they're younger than 5, you're going to have, you're going to need dialysis. And so you don't want to be those cases is what we're trying to say. And most importantly, to be careful, right? Because you could eat anywhere. You can eat at a 5-star restaurant and get E. coli. I doubt it, but you know. So this is video one. I'm gonna make another video. I feel like this is running really long, that's why I'm making 2 videos. But I just want people to be aware of like why we have chosen what we do. And I'm not really doing it to tell people. I'm telling them that like, hey, be careful what you say on the internet, because you never really know. Like, you just be careful on how you approach people, how you treat people. And I think we live in a world, and I've really tried to give this location the benefit of the doubt, and I just feel like in their responses, they don't care, right? And I kind of feel, I wanted to tell my story on kind of the situation with the health department. If you have something happen like this, be very persistent. I was persistent, and it didn't get me anywhere. Be more persistent than I was, because at the end of the day, it may save you thousands.